Hey girls, how's it going?
It's good.
It's good.
Good. It's good.
It's snowing pretty hard.
Yeah, we're in the snow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just started to snow today as well. And it's supposed to get like pretty nuts this weekend. How about theirs? It's supposed to get pretty bad.
Yeah, I mean, I think today was the big snow day for this week, but I'm sure it'll.
But this weekend it's gonna drop pretty quick.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got negatives.
Yeah, we're getting pretty brutal here too. I think it's like -2, but then with the wind chill, it's like -20 or something like that. It's like something.
Yeah, I think they said the wind chill was like -40. I mean, I couldn't believe it. Like this is probably the coldest I've been since Germany.
Oh yeah, Germany was cold.
Was it?
Yeah, super cold. Had to wear a jacket all times.
All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know there's like other parts in the area that are getting even worse and getting even more snow. We're not as bad where we're at, I guess, because we're fairly close to the lake. That sort of shells us. I don't understand the science of it. I just know that because I'm by the lake, a little better here. But yeah, it's gonna be a pretty brutal weekend, and it's been a pretty mild winter for the most part. I mean, it's only my second year here, but it's so much less than last year. Last year was like, I feel like I had to get the snowblower out like every other day. But,
yeah,
we have a lot of snow here right now.
We've been shoveling, but hopefully, I don't know. Hopefully, it lets up. It's cold.
Yeah, it's just cold.
And what have you two been up to occupy yourselves?
School's been pretty consistent. We've got a lot going on
the weekend and stuff. I usually like do crafts sometimes and bake something. I just do that.
What kind of stuff do you bake?
I made confetti cookies the other day. Yeah, those were pretty good. And then I've made a dessert baklava, yeah.
Love baklava.
Yeah, we made that, and what else? I do make these kind of diamond cookies. Geo cookies. Cookies, they're pretty cool. And yeah, that's kind of what I bake sometimes.
That's cool.
The only thing I can bake. Yeah.
I mean, I can't bake very much, so you're doing all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll wait another minute or three for some other people to show up. We don't need a lot material wise. I mean, we want a pencil, we want an eraser, we want some paper. If you want to work from a picture, you can work from a picture. If you have a mirror and you want to draw yourself, you can do that. But most of what we're going to be talking about is kind of like drawing pretty average faces. I mean, I'll look at I have a picture that I'll look at like for some reference to kind of point out some ways where it might change with somebody. But that's not necessarily my focus today, I guess. But yeah, that's kind of our approach. Yeah. Let me just get around. Whoa. All right. I guess we'll kind of get right into it. If people show up, we'll catch them up and just take it from there. So I'm going to mostly have the camera this way. So like I said, I mean, I have a picture of myself just to kind of, I don't know, help point some relationships here. I'm actually going to draw on myself a little bit to point some stuff out. And we're just going to kind of go right for it. So yeah, we're going to start with trying to draw just a pretty straightforward portrait, somebody looking straight ahead at you. But then we'll get, I don't know, we'll see how time goes. And then we'll get a little bit into thinking about other angles and some approaches that you would take there.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to start off on my paper, and I'm just going to draw a pretty decent sized circle. I mean, not huge, but we want to give ourselves some space to draw our faces. And don't worry about it being perfect. we're going to end up erasing probably half of this anyways. I guess I need to draw a little darker so it can show up on the screen. But you do not have to draw darker for it to show up on the screen. You can draw nice and light so that it's easy to erase and adjust. All right. All right, next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to draw kind of a square in that circle. So I'll just take it one part at a time. I'm going to kind of chop off some of the sides because the side of your head is relatively flat. So this is, again, but this is going to mostly be a guideline for now, but try to take off about the same amount on each side. Just it's like somewhere around like maybe 1/6 of the circle, but it's not a super exact measurement. Okay. All right. And then kind of right where those edges are meeting the corners of the circle, we are going to and also draw some lines here. Okay. Yeah, I guess we can see that okay enough. All right. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to draw some more guidelines. I'm going to draw a line right down the middle, you know, as best as you can. You don't need to measure necessarily. And then I'm going to draw a line right across the middle. All right. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to try to look at this distance between kind of that middle line and the bottom of that square. And we want to think about that distance and go about the same distance again and make kind of a mark there. And that's so to kind of give you a little information about what these sort of guidelines are. All right, this top of our square is approximately going to be like our hairline. Okay, so it's kind of like right there. All right, this next line is going to be your brow line. So not where your eyes are exactly, but kind of right above your eyes, that kind of ridge that's there. Okay. This next line here is going to be right about where your nose hits. Okay. And then this little mark here is going to be about your chin. So I'm going to actually bring this out a little bit, have that connect there. So right at that kind of corner is about where that's going to connect with the rest of our head. You know, if I'm trying to make it more specifically to my chin, I can try to like look at that shape a little bit. All right, because some people might have more round chins or more square chins. I think I have a pretty average chin, I guess. And then we are going to kind of, these straight lines that we have from the circle, we're going to kind of, we don't want that circle line for the side of our head, but we don't want that super straight square line either. So I'm going to kind of bring this shape out a little bit, just kind of rounding off that straightness. And then, so I'm going to darken some stuff here. You don't necessarily have to darken in the way I do. I'm just trying to make some things stick out a little bit better on the camera. All right, so that's kind of our basic shape for our head. Okay, following me so far? We all right? Cool. All right, let me think. What should we do next here? So I guess the next thing I'm going to do is start to sketch in the eyes, just so we can start figuring out where some parts of our face are. So I know, again, this line is our brow line, so that's going to be kind of where my eyebrows are. I'm just going to kind of make a little mark there for approximately what my eyebrows are going to be like, but I'll worry about that more later. And then below that, we're going to try to draw the shape for our eyes. Now, the shape, the way you would describe the shape of your eyes, you might say it's like a lemon, you might say it's like a football or an almond, and everybody's kind of in that ballpark somewhere, where it's kind of this oval-like shape that comes to a little bit of a point on the sides. Okay. And then I'll get into some information about size here in a second. So there should be enough room in between your eyes that you could draw a third eye the same size. You don't need to draw that in there, but you could if that helps you kind of figure it out. At least kind of think about it, analyze it a little bit. If it seems like you could fit, 7 eyes in between there, it means you're probably making your eyes too small. If you can't even fit, 1 eye in there, maybe you're making your eyes too big or close together. So that's just kind of an estimate. And then on the sides, you should have about enough room to make at least half of an eye on the sides. Okay. So far, so good. All right, I'm going to erase that third eye in the middle because that's a little bit distracting. I'm not drawing space aliens just yet. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go right into making some details with the eyes. We're not going to go fully detailed yet, but just a little bit more so we know what's going on here. The next thing that I want to talk about is when you're drawing your eyes, you want to think about the way your eyes are in like a natural state. And generally speaking, your eyes are usually not all the way open unless you are surprised, scared, or drank too much soda or something like that. So we are going to see at least a little bit of an eyelid there. All right, I made that a little too. So I'm just going to add a bit of a curved line there to kind of at least give the suggestion of an eyelid. All right. Then we're going to get into drawing what is kind of the colored part of your eye, referred to as the iris. And your iris is, generally speaking, a very perfect circle. But because your eyes are not going to be all the way open, you're not going to see the whole circle. So it is a nice even circle, but parts of it are going to be cut off. At this point, sometimes I go back and forth debating whether or not I'm going to draw the pupil in. I mean, you can, it doesn't hurt anything, but it does look a little weird right now without having color. Again, it kind of looks like someone that maybe had like too much caffeine or is staring right through your soul or something like that. It looks a little intense at the moment, but I'm going to go ahead and do that. We'll try to get into some information about coloring a little bit later. All right. Some other things about the eyes. Eyelashes. I always go back and forth on drawing eyelashes. Everybody has eyelashes. That is important to know. But when, some people's eyelashes stick out more than others. But generally speaking, they are very, very small individual hairs. When you're looking at someone and you're kind of seeing them, about this big, I don't know how well you're going to see the eyelashes. And I think the reason I sometimes hesitate to add them or ask students to draw them is they'll exaggerate them too much and it stops looking realistic. So, I mean, I'll just say if you want to add them, there are very, very thin lines. They're almost invisible. And they are going to grow right off of the edge of your eyelid, but they're going to be super duper thin lines. But yeah, sometimes students put them in there and they look a little too cartoony or something like that. And that's fine if that's the style you're going for. If you want it to be kind of exaggerated, there's no problem there. All right. I'm going to go from there and add in my eyebrows. And I'm going to kind of erase that line I had before because I made them a little too low. And eyebrows can add a lot of expression to a face. You know, depending how you draw them, it can make somebody look surprised, confused, nervous, angry, etc., etc. But if we're just trying to draw a pretty casual, average expression here, it's going to have your eyelashes, you know, the direction of it is going to have a pretty similar sort of arch as the top of your eye. Okay. I tend to kind of add a really light guideline, right? And then when I go to draw it in, I want to really make sure I'm drawing the eyebrows as a lot of individual lines because it is individual hairs. You know, I see sometimes students, so kind of on one side of the head here, I'm going to do a good way, and over here I'm going to do kind of where they just draw kind of the outline of it. And again, that's fine if you're going for something a little cartoony or exaggerated, but if we're trying to be realistic, we want it to look like individual lines. And now if I knew I was going to go and if I was going to do this in color, I might start with that outline like I'm telling you not to do. And then I would kind of fill that in with my colored pencil or whatever I happen to be using. But I think we're just going to stick, for the most part, we're going to do this in black and white. I'll talk a little bit about some things that you can do with color. And another thing with your eyebrows, it's usually kind of thinner on the ends, a little bit thicker in the middle. Again, you know, everybody might be a little bit different, but that's kind of what we're looking at. I don't see like half of my eyebrows because I'm wearing glasses, but you see them a little bit. I'll worry about adding glasses later. I tend to approach drawing portraits as if I can see everything. And then as I go, if I cover parts of it up with stuff, then that's fine. But I think it works out better for me if I just kind of pretend I can see everything, you know, even the ear, you know, if I tell students to draw the ears, even if they have long hair and they can't see their ears, then we'll just cover it up with the hair later. But it's a good practice to pretend like they're there, kind of. All right. How are we doing on eyes? We all right? Cool. All right. So we'll move on to the nose. And the nose is tricky. The nose is weird. You know, when we're talking about the eyes, there's a very distinct point where, you know, your face stops and your eyes start. You know, it's a very distinct shape. Your nose is a bit different because it just kind of grows off your face. It's pointing out at you. It's not as like normal shapes. You know, again, eyes, where it's pretty close to an oval. It's more shapes that we're familiar with, but the eyes can be a bit weirder. Or I'm sorry, the nose can be a bit weirder. So first I'm actually going to draw one real big here, just so it shows up better. I might even draw it in marker so we can see it pretty well. And again, I'm just drawing a pretty average nose. So let's say here's that mark where we're going to put our nose on. Okay. I'm going to start with kind of just a slight curve, not even a half a circle, just kind of a bit of a curved line there, right? And then on each end, I'm going to make a loop, kind of going underneath that line. Okay. And that's giving a suggestion of my nostrils, but then we kind of have the outside of your nostrils, and this is going to be sort of like this, sort of almost like you put parentheses around the sides of your nose. And a lot of these lines are almost work like guidelines, so that if I'm going in later with color or shading, I know that this is just kind of like important points to keep in mind when I'm doing that sort of thing. So like this next line, I want to give the, the tip of your nose is very round. Some people's might be pointier than others or rounder than others. But generally speaking, it does have some roundness to it. So like this line that I'm going to draw here is kind of just like to suggest some roundness. But later on, if I would go to shade it, that might just be the point where kind of a shaded region ends. It's probably not going to be this dark of a line, this strict of a line, if that makes sense. Okay. And then kind of same thing for the bridge of your nose. All right. It's really not that sharp of a line in the way it looks on your actual face. So this is maybe a place later where I need to pay attention where I'm shading, if that makes sense. So that's a very, and there's maybe a little bit of a wide nose that I drew here now that I'm looking at the finished thing. But that's kind of my very average general approach to trying to draw a realistic nose. So let me go back to my face here. All right, so if I'm looking a little bit more at my nose, it's not too different than the nose that I drew there. It's maybe a little bit of more of a point. You might, if you're trying to draw somebody specific, you might want to pay attention to the shape of their nostrils. Some people's might be a little bit longer kind of thing. Kind of that roundness point on my nose comes up a bit higher. It's a bit thinner than that nose I drew before. And yeah, I'm just going to kind of draw this in here. Now that is too light. How can I get that to look a little better on the camera? I'm going to play with my lighting real quick. Let me see if I can get this to show up better. Yeah, I don't know if that made much of a difference, but we'll go from there. All right. I guess we'll move on to the mouth. All right. Well, actually, we're going to do another few sort of guidelines here. So now we're going to think about the space from the bottom of our nose to our chin. And basically what we want to do is we want to split that space up into 3 sections. Generally speaking, that circle is probably going to come right, and that's going to be a good 1/3. So we kind of just have those 3 little sections, if that makes sense. We've got this section here, and this section down here. Okay. And that bottom one is going to be kind of the chin sort of line. And then this line here is going to be kind of where the top and bottom lip meet. Okay. Next thing with that is thinking about how wide to make the mouth. And generally speaking, I'm going to draw right on here. It's going to look like I'm crying a little bit, but I don't know if you can see that. I guess you can. If you're thinking about the middle of your eyes, that's about where the edges of your mouth are. Okay. So I'm going to just think of this sort of, I'm just going to make it a sort of a dotted line from here. And that's going to give me a guideline of about, maybe I made my chin a little too thin there because that's coming really close to the side of my chin, but I'll adjust that later. We'll just one thing at a time here. All right. Oh yeah, so I'm up. Actually, that's all right. That's all right. I'm going to erase some of this because I don't need all of this information out. It's getting a little bit in my way. But I've got my guideline of where my lip will be, where the lips need to end. So first I'll start with a line that's just going to be kind of where my lips meet. And I'm just going to, again, drawing a pretty casual expression here. All right. Maybe got a little bit of a grin to it. The bottom lip, it's going to be thinner on the ends. I'm just going to kind of get its thickest in the middle. Sort of like that. The top lip is going to be sort of similar. The sides are going to maybe swoop in a little bit more, but they are going to get thicker in the middle. And then you are going to have that kind of little dip in your lip. Made mine a little thick for my face, so I'm going to kind of thin that down a little bit. All right, and then I'm gonna erase a little bit more of that circle, especially because the way that line continues, it's making me look like I have a really weird grin on my face. That's kind of distracting. Sometimes I make a little sort of suggestion of that part above your lip where you see kind of that bit of an indentation. And I just kind of, I don't know how to describe it. It's sort of just a little bit of a curve that I put in there. Again, that's one of those lines that's going to be sort of more of a suggestion of a place I want to focus on when I'm doing my shading. It's not so much a real sharp line like that. Do either of you feel like sharing where you're at this point? You don't have to, just thought I'd ask. Okay, that's all right. We'll move on. We'll move on. All right, so the next thing we are going to do is we are going to start talking about the ears. All right. First thing about the ears is a little bit with the placement. So we want to think they're going to start generally kind of lined up about with your eyes. So that's going to be kind of about where the top of my ear is. And then the bottom of the ears is going to be at its lowest. It'll hit kind of that point with your nose. Let's see if I'm looking at mine. Let me kind of draw right on there with the marker. So if I'm going straight across there, and it's nice to have a picture that you can just kind of destroy as you're observing it, and you can draw these guidelines right on it. So if you find a picture in a magazine or you print one out, that's kind of a handy thing to have. I almost like that more than a mirror, because if I'm using a mirror, you know, I might change the angle of my head a little bit and that can throw off things I'm trying to observe. But this picture, it's always going to be that same expression. I can mess it up. I can draw right on it. And if that helps me out, that's great. So I can see with that, my ear's not quite at that line. It's a little above it. All right. And another thing I want to stress with students is when you're drawing the ear from this angle where you're looking at somebody straight ahead, you don't see much of it. It's not the same as when you look at somebody from the side and you see all those like little kind of canals and everything of your ear. And you're not going to see a whole lot. It's just going to kind of be a shape that comes out a little bit, kind of swoops in and then swoops back out a little bit. Okay. And kind of same thing on the other side. It's not coming way down there, just kind of right about something like that. All right, and I just leave that shape for now. You know, if I'm looking at my ears, I don't see, again, much of those kind of details in there. You might see a little bit of a ridge or something. You're not going to see a whole lot. All right. All right, are we ready to start talking about drawing the hair? Okay. So the hair is a very, I don't know, I wouldn't say it's the hardest part to draw, but it's kind of a tricky thing to teach because it's going to be different on almost everybody, even people with very similar hairstyles. You know, the length of it, the color of it, the texture of it is going to make it, you know, just the way it's sitting on your head that day, it's going to change a lot. But we've got some things here to kind of help us out. One thing, this last guideline that we haven't talked about yet, that should be about where your hairline is. So that's kind of where, you know, the top part of your head, all right, where that's hair growing. Depending how your hair is styled, you might have, you know, hair that's coming down into your face a little bit, or, you know, kind of swooping down or something like that. But mine's not really, it's coming down a little bit right here, but that's a pretty good guideline to know. That's about where my hair is starting. Whether it's going up or down is something you just kind of have to observe with each person. But what I do from there is I kind of am just thinking about, here again, I'm going to draw right on here. I'm thinking about the shape that my hair is making around my face. All right. And kind of the relationship of that and the rest of my face. So I've got a good amount of space in between here to kind of play around with. So yeah, I've got a little bit of a swoop of hair kind of coming in there. And then I kind of see the sides of my hair coming in there. And I do have some sideburns, and then they kind of just blend into my beard a little bit, or my lack of beard at this point. And kind of the same thing on the other side. So what I might do at this point as well, while I'm trying to figure out this kind of hairline, is erase the rest of my guidelines because I don't need them so much anymore. That hairline guideline was kind of the last line I needed. I'm going to leave that shape for the dome of my head for another moment. I just want to not get too confused with some of these other parts that I've drawn. All right. So then similar to that, kind of figuring out that line, I also want to kind of figure out then, yeah, how far off the top of my head and kind of what's that shape that's being made by that top edge of my hair, you know, kind of something like that. So yeah, it's kind of coming up like this. And I don't know if you're, you know, who you're trying to draw in your picture. You can draw whoever you want. You can draw an imaginary person if you want. That's fine by me. We're just kind of practicing general approaches here. And then now I'm going to go ahead and erase that line that kind of represents the top of my skull, but not necessarily the top of my hair, of course. We still want to do a little bit more with the hair even before we would start shading or coloring, because right now it does just look like, I don't know, a weird helmet on my head. It doesn't really necessarily have a sense of hair yet. And then, you know, it might depend on what you're going to do with your portrait. Again, is it going to be something you're shading? Is it going to be something you're coloring? All of that might have an effect. If it was going to be something I was going to color with, again, let's say colored pencil, I might stop with the hair there and then worry about kind of giving the suggestion of hair with the colored pencil. And whether you're using colored pencil or just shading it in with your regular pencil or whatever, we do want to give a sense that it's hair. It's got individual hairs to it. Not that you need to draw every single individual hair, but you want to give it at least a suggestion of that. So if I'm looking at my hair in this picture, you know, I'm seeing some hair going this way. We want to kind of get some lines there to suggest the directions that your hair is going. And I apologize that my hair is the one I'm using as an example, because there's not really like a very specific style to it. It's just kind of all over the place. But I'm just kind of looking at kind of the movement of my hair and trying to suggest how that looks. So yeah, I'm not trying to draw every hair, but trying to draw some lines for the movement of hair, and maybe we're kind of like chunks of my hair break off kind of thing. Something like that. I'll give you a little time to catch up on that hair. And I'm just going to kind of do some minor adjustments here and there. Nothing too big at the moment. So far, this guy looks way too clean cut to be me. And I think because I did add the eyelashes, just looks a little bit, I don't know, a little bit prettier than me. Has a little bit of a, I don't know, fairy. No, I don't know what I would describe this version of me, but maybe like an alternate version, alternate universe. Ben Pulowski, a cousin of mine, maybe. All right. Are we ready to move on? I don't want to rush anyone. Take your time. Okay. So from there, let me think. What do I want to do next? I guess I'll talk about thinking about the neck. And my angle on this picture, it's kind of hard to see my neck. And I do have a bit of a wider neck than the average person. But kind of when I'm thinking about the neck, it's a little thinking about kind of that edge line of your eyes. And that's going to be again, very approximately where your neck is going to be. I'm just going to kind of, do a suggestion line of like where my shirt would start. And I know I'm not really focusing too much on drawing the other parts of the body. But often what I see students do is they just draw a really skinny neck And then they draw these really skinny shoulders, and it looks, it can look okay. It might look like a fun drawing, but it's not going to necessarily look realistic. Your shoulders come out approximately, if you're thinking of the width of your head, that's about how far over your shoulders are going to be. At least, if that might be full grown adult proportions. That might be a little bit different than a kid. But chances are, if you drew your head anywhere nearly as large as I did, we're probably not going to see the edges of your shoulders. All right, might just kind of slope down. Yeah, I'm not going to quite see that for me. Because, yeah, even though we are focusing on drawing a portrait, we don't want it to be a floating head. So, again, if I'm thinking about shading or coloring, probably what I would do is something like this. If I was coloring or shading, I would kind of still keep it pretty realistic and pretty bold kind of at the tops of my shoulders. And then I'd just kind of like fade it into the paper. So as I'd go down, whatever I'm using to color or shade would just get lighter and lighter until it just blends in with the paper. But that's me. You could, maybe give your person a cool shirt or top to be wearing. That's totally fine. All right. So now, depending on who you're trying to draw or how you're trying to draw them, you might be done at this point. But since I am trying to draw myself, I'll talk a little bit about drawing glasses. So this could be the point that you are thinking about, some of those details that might be more specific to you. It could be glasses. It could be you have earrings in. It could be freckles or a birthmark or something like that. But they're things that not necessarily everybody is going to have to draw. That might be more specific to you. So if I'm going to draw my glasses, I'm going to first start focusing on what is that shape of the lens around my eye, and then where is it in relation to my eye. So if I'm looking at this, that's kind of going right through the top of my eye. All right, so that's going to be right where I want that lens to hit. So just thinking about that shape. I get tripped up on glasses sometimes because I don't know, they don't always look super symmetrical for me, where it looks good if you're just looking at the individual half of a face, but then when you look at the two glasses together, something looks a little wonky. But I'm going to still try. We only get better at things by trying. So even though it's a part I struggle with a little bit, I'm going to give it a whirl. So that's the general shape of the lens. And then I'm going to try to go in there and get the frame in. So it's a little bit thicker over here. Then I'll get right into the other lens. The tricky thing here, I guess, is I am observing this lens and trying to draw this lens, obviously. But I don't know, something maybe happens that the way I'm observing this lens, something comes out a little bit different than this lens. So the symmetry thing gets to be a bit of a challenge. But like I said, we only get better at it by trying to do it and then seeing what we can learn from what happened. Maybe it turned out great and we learn, Oh, that's the way I should always try to do it. Or we figure out where we went wrong and figure out what we want to do different next time. This is turning out okay. The lens looks okay. So is it going to stay okay when I add the frame? And then I just have the kind of the arm of my glasses is just kind of going straight back and kind of disappearing behind my ear a little bit. Ooh. All right, that's not too bad. It turned out okay. How are we doing over there? Okay. I might be done doing the basic drawing. You know, for me, I might think about, you know, I've got a stubble from not shaving for a few days. So I don't know, maybe I'm kind of like just lightly kind of like adding some dots kind of thing. I don't know. It's a little tricky. Again, that might be something I wait more for, like the shading part of it or the coloring part of it. But that's kind of up to you. All right, let me just clean this up a little bit. And then we'll see where we're at. All right, I'm pretty satisfied with that. Again, it looks a little bit like if I was an action figure and I was like really just like smooth and shiny or something like that. That's maybe kind of what I'd look like. It's like a polished version of me. Somebody put me in a rock tumbler and this is what I look like now. All right, how are you two doing? Are we thinking about sharing your drawing?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah? All right.
I'll share.
Yeah.
Right.
Everything looks a little weird.
I think
The
the lips are a little on the big side, but you've got you know, you've got some other.
Yeah, I think we still have to like work on the
Look,
lips.
it looks really weird in the camera.
I think you've got like your shapes are pretty good and your placement of things are pretty good. Sizes on the lips a little bit are a little too big. The eyes look a pretty good size. No, that's not bad.
I think we just practice.
Yeah, I mean, I should have, you know, I at the beginning of this, like, you know, I'm trying to help you out with portrait drawing, but it's not that. At the end of this class, all of a sudden, we're going to be great. You know, I've been drawing portraits for, you know, my whole life basically, and I've drawn myself a zillion times, a lot of times for demos like this, and still not perfect. I still got action figure Ben Pawlowski here. It's not really this Ben Pawlowski. So, what do you got? Let's see what you got.
Mine isn't too crazy.
Okay.
I still have some stuff to work on.
Yeah. Yeah, you're doing all right.
Absolutely.
So let me think what other things I want to get into. And this might be, you know, because we're already at 6:48 here, but just to kind of give you some other things to think about, I'm going to show you a real kind of quick take on the same approach, but if your face was at a different angle and kind of what that might look like. I'm not going to finish a whole portrait here, but I'll give you kind of the basic outline. So here we go into here. So yeah, if I was drawing from another perspective, I'm going to move that because that's going to distract me. So we would start in a pretty similar way. So I'm going to start with a circle. Okay. That got a little out of control, but that's all right. I'm just working quick. And now to represent that flat part of the head, instead of just drawing a line, I am going to make it more of a circle. So this is gonna be someone looking in this direction, sort of. It's not gonna be a complete profile, but it's gonna be certainly the head is tilted that way. So I'm gonna draw kind of a circle that kind of represents, so it's kind of like if this was a sphere, we chopped part of it off here. By the way, from the way it looks like in your camera, does it look like I'm right-handed or left-handed right now? I can't hear you. Sorry.
Right-handed.
Okay. Because it reverses it on my camera and it trips me out every time I look up and see my hand and it's a left hand. And it's just, I was just curious. All right.
Yeah, it looks like you're right-handed.
Okay. All right. Then let me think here. What do I want to do next? I have a little less experience with this approach because I usually teach just the straight on method, but I realize people might want to do more than that. So this is I'm gonna break that slice into halves, and then from here I'm going to draw. So this is going to be my one line. So actually, no, I should have kept that. Never mind. So this would be kind of our approach, the straightforward one. So this line is going to be kind of this brow line here. Okay. And then this line, and this would get, you know, I know I'm drawing it really straight, but that's just kind of the angle. You can kind of think of this as like a rubber band that might be going around. You know what I mean? And then same thing here, kind of where that hits there. Okay, so similarly, so this is kind of these lines. So then we want to take that distance again and go down to here, and that's going to be about our chin. All right. Let me think now. This is where I get a little tripped up. And I'm going to draw this line. And then that's going to be kind of our center line there. And then this is going to come more for our chin. And then this is going to come the chin on the other side. And then from there, you know, the angles are going to be a little bit different and there's some foreshortening to keep in mind. But again, this is going to be my brow line. So I'm going to have my eyes are going to be about here. All right, I'm just drawing real super basic. Now, generally speaking, because this eye is going to be closer to the viewer, this eye might be a little bit, actually, I drew that way too close to that center line. Give a little more space over there. So that eye might look a little bit bigger than this eye because this eye's technically a little further away. So there's going to be some foreshortening happening. All right. Nose is going to be right about on there. All right. And then that would be right about where the mouth hits. And then if we're thinking again, kind of in terms of those thirds, chin might be kind of there. So yeah, we'd see a mouth Is that showing up okay? Yeah, that's not bad. Not perfect, but it's okay. And this method is called the Loomis method. So if you did want to try, again, we might have maybe we'll do another class on trying to draw from different angles. But if you did want to look up more about that on your own, that's kind of the method. And then your ear is going to be kind of in this quadrant. But yeah, you kind of get the idea. And we'd have your neck sort of thing. But that's, you know, that's a whole nother world of stuff. But that's a real quick introduction into that approach. So yeah, do you have any questions for me or anything like that?
No, this was really cool.
Yeah, it was
Good.
fun.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. What sort of other art making have you been up to? And this is not me being like, hey, you better be doing your shape and sound stuff. I'm just curious. Because you know,
actually, I've been kind of caught up with school. I've been having some tests.
No worries. Cool.
But you know,
I'm sometimes busy with school, but usually I have these breaks where sometimes I draw something, but I haven't been able to get to my collage yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know you were curious or you were thinking about trying to do one of them digitally. Have you played around with that at all anymore?
Honestly, no, because my mom's using her computer a lot right now with a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Well, all right. Just some other I don't know, advice or whatever. If you want to draw more portraits, you know, observe pictures in magazines, try to look from them. You know, so I've seen some people do the thing where I just have us sitting over here. I was going to use this as our reference drawing, but I have this Robin Williams record where you find a photo of somebody like this where they're looking straight ahead, and then you chop the photo in half and then you try to draw the other half.
Yeah,
I think that's like a really good exercise. I did that when I was younger. And I think especially for trying to observe shading and try to get those exact tones, having it like side by side where you can be like, is this dark enough? Is this light enough? I found that to be a pretty helpful exercise. And this is more of a fun thing that you can do with portrait drawing. So here's like a color pencil version of myself, and you can make these flip books where you can like mix and match different faces. So I've got my second face here is that mask that I have. I don't know if I used to have it sitting in my background. It's this character I made up. It's kind of like this weird monster creature. Awesome. And then of course we've got Harry. And then you can mix and match and do. I kind of like this combination is maybe my favorite.
Yes, definitely,
for sure.
But yeah, that's just like a fun project you can do with it, and you can add as many layers or whatever as you want. Yeah. All right, girls. Any last questions or comments for me or anything like that?
Easy.
All right.
Nice.
All right. Well, keep making art, keep being awesome, and I'll see you at the next thing.
Yeah, of course.
All right.
All right. Have a nice night, girls.